When an animal loves us, its affection is not bound by the fleeting limitations of time. It is pure, unwavering, and eternal. But what of this love when the physical body is no longer present? Does death truly mark the end, or is there something beyond the veil, something greater that awaits us all? In moments of profound loss, we are reminded of the words of the Scriptures. For the Lord is good to all. He has compassion on all he has made. Psalm 145 verse 9. What if this love transcends our earthly understanding? Perhaps the bond we share with these creatures is a glimpse of a deeper spiritual connection, one that is rooted in God's eternal plan for all his creation. Death is not the end, but a transition, as we are told in 1 Corinthians 15 verse 22. For as in Adam all die, so in Christ all will be made alive. The love between us and the animals we cherish is a reflection of God's eternal love for us, a love that never ceases, even in the face of death. In this light, we can trust that there is a divine purpose that binds us all, human and animal alike, in an everlasting relationship. As we reflect on this, we realize that our bond with animals may be part of a greater divine plan that we are only beginning to understand. I invite you to join me in this journey of discovery, to embrace the depth of this spiritual truth. Type 7777 if you commit to this path of understanding, or simply write Amen to agree with the eternal love that transcends all boundaries. My name is Luis. I am 55 years old, and I live in Holland, Michigan. My life was turned upside down when I lost my wife, Aurora, to cancer, an illness that crept into our lives without warning or mercy. It was a sudden, violent departure. No time to prepare, no opportunity to hope, no space for me to retreat into denial. In the span of a few months, she was torn from me by a force too great to resist. I was left to face the devastating silence of a home once filled with love, laughter, and purpose. The world around me grew dull and lifeless, and I was trapped in a haze of sorrow, as though I were walking through a dream that had lost all its color. In my despair, I turned inward, losing myself in the hours of mindless television and the monotonous routine of buying groceries. I was consumed by emptiness. Nothing mattered anymore. Aurora had been my perfect companion, the heart of our home, and her absence felt unbearable. My grief became all-consuming, and I began to doubt if I could ever move forward. I had already suffered the loss of my mother to cancer many years ago, a wound that had taken years to heal, but this was different. This was final, irreparable. How could anyone recover from such a loss? Yet, one day, in the midst of my mourning, I experienced something unexpected. It was a cold, gray afternoon when I returned from shopping. I was walking to my car when something caught my eye, an abandoned cardboard box near a dumpster. I would have ignored it, but then I heard a faint whimper, a cry that stopped me dead in my tracks. I walked over, my heart heavy with sorrow, and there, inside the box, was a puppy. It was frail, trembling, its little eyes clouded with hunger and cold. No one was around. Someone had discarded this creature, left it to die alone, unloved, just as I felt, alone and forsaken. I had never been an animal person. I'd never thought of having a pet, nor did I desire one. Yet, in that moment, something stirred deep within me, and I couldn't walk away. I picked up the trembling creature, wrapping it in my jacket. I would take it home, I decided, care for it, and when it was better, I would take it to a shelter. Or so I thought. At first, the puppy was not the companion I had imagined. It was full of energy, chaotic, and wild. Everything I wasn't prepared for. It broke things, made noise, and seemed determined to undo whatever little order I had left in my life. Every attempt to train it ended in failure. It seemed as though the universe had conspired to keep me buried in frustration, and I was suffocating under its weight. My grief was overwhelming enough, but now, this little creature seemed to add to my burden. Every bark, every disobedient gesture, only deepened my sense of helplessness. But in the midst of my frustration, something shifted. As the days went by, I began to notice something strange. The puppy wasn't merely a problem. There was a look in its eyes, a sense of purpose and determination, as though it was trying to convey something to me. It wasn't just a random animal. It seemed as though it had been sent to me, placed in my life for a reason that I could not yet understand. And so, As the weeks passed, and the puppy regained strength, I began to feel something stirring within me. It was subtle at first, like the first flicker of a flame in a cold, dark room. I watched as the little creature grew stronger, its eyes brightening, its energy surging with life. In its presence, something in me began to awaken. The pain I had carried for so long started to crack. I could feel the ice that had encased my heart begin to melt, just a little bit. I had thought I was beyond hope, beyond healing. But the puppy, in its wild, messy way, was showing me something I couldn't ignore. New life was possible, even in the wake of devastating loss. It was then that I realized that this puppy, this little creature, was more than just a pet. It was a symbol of renewal, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, God's love can reach us. I named it Noah, after the patriarch who, through faith and obedience, survived the flood and brought forth new life. Noah was not just a name, but a reflection of what I was beginning to experience. Like Noah, I too was traversing a storm of grief and loss. And perhaps, in some quiet, miraculous way, I was beginning to see an arc on the horizon. Jesus taught us that even in our deepest suffering, there is hope. He endured the greatest pain imaginable, not for himself, but for us. And through his sacrifice, he demonstrated that life can emerge from death, that resurrection is possible. Perhaps, in the same way, this puppy had been sent to me, not as a burden, but as a gift, a sign that in the midst of our darkest trials, God's love is still at work, bringing new life, even when we cannot see it. Are we willing to see the hope that God places in our lives, even in the most unexpected forms? Do we trust that, in our brokenness, He is at work to heal us, to restore us, and to show us that new beginnings are possible, even after great loss? My journey with Noah has taught me that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unlikely packages, and that God's love can reach us through the most surprising of messengers. Just as Jesus was the ultimate gift of life, bringing salvation to a broken world, so too is the love that surrounds us. A reminder that even in our grief, God has not forsaken us. He is here, working in the silence, whispering hope into the very depths of our souls. And in that hope, we find the strength to move forward, to heal, and to embrace the new life He offers, however it may come. I found myself floating in darkness, no pain, no fear, only a sense of emptiness and suspension. Time itself felt suspended, as if the world had ceased to exist. It was as though I had been ripped away from everything familiar, leaving me in a place where nothing could touch me, not even my own thoughts. Slowly, a warm light began to filter through the shadows, a glow that didn't come from any external source, but seemed to radiate from within, like a fire that burned without consuming. This light, gentle yet all-encompassing, wrapped around me like a soft embrace, pushing back the darkness in waves. And then, I saw Him. Before me stood a figure of such majesty and radiance that my heart trembled with awe. His presence was unlike anything I had ever felt before, a warmth that went beyond anything earthly. Jesus. The glow around Him was pure, tranquil, a harmony that resonated in every fiber of my being. His eyes, full of compassion and understanding, met mine with a gaze that seemed to pierce through every layer of my soul. The peace emanating from Him was overwhelming, as though everything I had ever suffered or feared melted away in His presence. Lewis. His voice came, soft and reassuring, yet filled with a power that grounded me. It wrapped around my soul, offering a comfort I had never known. Do not fear. You are here for a reason greater than you can imagine. In that moment, all the fear, all the pain, the uncertainty of life seemed to dissolve. A profound sense of peace washed over me, as if the weight of all my struggles, my failures, my loneliness had been lifted in an instant. It was as if I had finally found what I had been searching for all my life, a place of acceptance, of warmth, of understanding. Jesus looked at me with a depth that made me feel seen in a way no one ever had. There is something you must know, something concerning both you and Noah, he continued, his words imbued with a gravity that made my heart beat faster. I felt his gaze pierce deeper, probing into places within me I had long since buried. There was a mystery to be unveiled, something that would change everything I thought I knew about myself, and about Noah. His next words struck me like a thunderclap, shaking the very foundations of my understanding. Noah was sent to you for this very reason. That day when you found him in that box, it wasn't a coincidence. A chill ran down my spine. The memories of that day rushed back to me, the cold, rainy afternoon when I had found Noah, trembling and vulnerable, hidden away in that abandoned box. A dog, neglected and abused, discarded by the world. I had taken him in, not knowing then how much he would come to mean to me. He had been broken, just as I had been, separated from his family, starved, and near death. And yet, in finding him, I had found someone who understood the pain I carried. Together, we had both healed, piece by piece. The realization hit me harder than I could have ever imagined. Noah had not only been a companion, but a messenger, a guide, sent into my life for a purpose beyond my comprehension. He wasn't just a stray animal I had taken pity on, he was a part of a much larger plan. My heart raced as I absorbed this truth, as it began to take root within me. Just as my life was starting to feel worthwhile again, just as I was rediscovering small moments of serenity and learning to appreciate the simple things, everything changed in an instant. One moment, everything felt calm and beautiful, and the next, it was shattered, completely upended. In a fraction of a second, everything I knew was ripped away from me. My existence, along with Noah's, was forever altered. It wasn't just an accident. It was a moment of profound consequence. It had been a beautiful day, one of those rare, perfect afternoons when everything seems to align. The sun was high in the sky, casting its warm glow over the world, while a gentle breeze stirred the air just enough to make it perfect for a walk. Noah and I strolled along the sidewalk, side by side, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. We had no idea what was waiting for us. Nothing seemed to suggest that this peaceful afternoon would be anything but normal. We were just two souls, lost in the beauty of a quiet day. When we reached a crosswalk, I stopped in front of the pedestrian stripes, my attention momentarily diverted to the simple task of crossing safely. A car slowed down and stopped to let us pass. I glanced both ways, checking for oncoming traffic, and stepped forward with Noah just slightly ahead of me. It was the kind of moment that should have felt ordinary, routine, even mundane. Then, in a heartbeat, everything changed. A roar pierced the calm, the unmistakable sound of engines revving, tires screeching, metal screaming. Two cars appeared out of nowhere, speeding from behind the stopped vehicle, their drivers racing, reckless and uncaring. It was as if they were blind to the lives that stood before them, unaware that they were hurtling toward two fragile, innocent beings. Time seemed to slow, stretching out in a way I couldn't understand. My breath caught in my throat, my heart pounded in my chest, and my mind screamed at me to act, to do something, anything. But it was too late. The headlights of the oncoming cars rushed toward us, blinding in their intensity. I called out to Noah, my voice filled with terror, but the words came too late. I reached out, trying to pull him back with the leash, but it snapped violently, dragging me with it. In an instant, there was a loud crash, an explosion of noise and pain, and then everything went black. I felt my body lift off the ground, suspended in a moment that seemed to stretch on forever. And then, with a sickening jolt, I crashed back down, my head slamming into the pavement with brutal force. The world around me went dark. There was no sound, no light, just an overwhelming emptiness, a void that swallowed everything whole. Tears streamed down my face. Lord, I never saw animals this way. I thought they were just creatures that a man grows fond of, nothing more. Jesus shook his head gently. Animals are much more than that, Louise. They're a gift from God, tools of love and healing. When a man loses his way, when his pain becomes unbearable, God often sends them. I closed my eyes, absorbing every word. Noah had been sent to me. He had been chosen for me. It wasn't an accident. He wasn't just an abandoned dog that I rescued. He was the one who saved me. Jesus motioned toward me with a gentle gesture. You and Noah are two wounded souls who found each other. His suffering was yours. His confusion was yours. But you chose one another. You saved each other. I was overwhelmed by an indescribable emotion. Emotion. It was true. In all those months, I hadn't merely taken Noah in, he had taken me in too. Have you ever considered, Louise, that Noah understood you? His words stirred something deep within me. How many times had I talked to him, confiding my pain? How many times, in the darkest nights, when Aurora's absence was almost unbearable, had I turned and met his gaze? How many times, without a single word, had he rested his muzzle on my hands as if to say, I am here. And what if he truly did understand? Jesus smiled. The bond you have formed with Noah is stronger than you imagine. It is not merely the affection between a man and his dog. It is a bond forged between two kindred souls, recognizing and understanding one another. Do you mean that I will see him again? That Noah will have a place in your kingdom? Jesus nodded. Is it not written, "For the creation itself eagerly awaits the revealing of the children of God"? For the creation was subjected to futility, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in the hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God. Romans 8 verse 19 to 21. I paused, reflecting. Does this mean that animals too will be redeemed? When everything is fulfilled and sin is destroyed, creation will be restored. Nothing created with love will be lost. In my kingdom, every living being will find its place, and animals will no longer be subjected to suffering. Jesus then showed me another vision. I saw a new, wondrous land. The air was crystal clear, the rivers flowed pure, and across endless meadows, animals of every species ran free without fear. I saw wolves and lambs resting together, lions lying beside children, and horses galloping over golden expanses. And then, among them, I saw him, Noah. He was there, strong and healthy, his energy radiant, his eyes sparkling with joy, and his spirit free from all pain. He was searching for me, waiting for me. Noah will be there, Louise, just like all those who have loved and served with a pure heart. Tears streamed down my face. Lord, does this mean that every animal we have loved will return to us? Jesus nodded softly. Not all animals share a deep bond with humans. Some are simply creatures of the earth. But those that have been part of your journey, those who have loved you and whom you have loved, will have a place by your side. For love is never wasted. I collapsed, overwhelmed by the revelation. So our bond will never be broken? Never. The love that comes from God is eternal. Jesus looked at me with profound intensity. Louise, listen carefully. Animals do not have a soul like humans. They are not held accountable in the same way, for they do not sin. They do not choose between good and evil. But they do have a spirit, a spark of life that comes from God. And nothing that comes from God is ever lost. The last thing I saw was Noah, still injured but alive. Then I woke up. The vision before me was heart-wrenching. I saw Noah lying on the asphalt, his body motionless, his breath shallow and broken, blood staining his coat. But in his eyes, there was still life, a spark of resistance, a will to fight. I lowered my gaze to Noah. His body trembled, yet his heart still beat. Will he recover? Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder. He suffered a devastating blow, but his time is not over yet. It will take months, care, and patience, but Noah will rise again, and your bond will be stronger than ever. I felt a lump in my throat. Lord, and when his time comes, when he dies, will I see him again? Do animals have a soul? Jesus fixed me with a deep, intense look. Louise, listen carefully. Animals do not have a soul in the same way that humans do. They are not called to answer for their deeds as humans are, for they do not sin or choose between good and evil. But they do have a spirit, a spark of life given by God. And nothing that has been created with love will be lost. Animals were not created to suffer, nor to be mistreated. They were part of God's perfect design, and in his kingdom, they will once again reflect that perfection. Before departing, Jesus said one last thing. When you return, tell others what you have seen. The world has forgotten the value of God's creatures. Remind mankind that every life is precious and that every bond of love is a sacred gift. He showed me an image. I saw Eden in all its pristine beauty. Animals lived in harmony with one another and with man. There was no fear, no struggle for survival, no death. It was like this in the beginning. I paused to reflect. Does that mean that even animals will be redeemed? When all is accomplished and sin is destroyed, creation will be restored. Nothing that has been created with love will be lost. In my kingdom, every living being will find its place, and animals will no longer suffer. Jesus then showed me another vision. I saw a marvelous new land. The air was clear, the rivers flowed pure, and across endless meadows, animals of every species ran free without fear. I saw wolves and lambs resting together, lions lying beside children, and horses galloping through golden fields. And then, among them, I saw him, Noah. He was there, strong and healthy, his energy radiant. His eyes shone with joy, his spirit unburdened by pain. My heart clenched painfully. Lord, Noah has suffered so much in his life. He was abandoned, He experienced the pain of loneliness, and now this. Why did he have to endure all of this? Jesus looked at me with infinite gentleness. Louise, the suffering of animals reflects the suffering of our fallen world. When sin entered the world, creation itself became tainted. The pain, the death, the cruelty, none of this was my Father's original plan. Jesus nodded. Is it not written? For the creation itself waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to futility, not of its own will, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in the hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. Romans 8 verse 19 to 21. Then, the light around me began to fade. I felt a pull drawing me back into my body, the real world becoming clear once again. The days following the accident were a whirlwind of pain, fear, and hope. I remained in the hospital for weeks as my body tried to heal, but my mind was elsewhere in a dark, cold room, where one question echoed relentlessly. Would Noah make it? The veterinarians were skeptical. The impact had been devastating, his condition critical. Yet Noah did not respond. He lay motionless, teetering between life and death. Every night I prayed with all my heart. God, you sent him to save me. Please do not take him away. Then, one morning, as I sat beside him, my eyes heavy with exhaustion and my voice broken by tears, I felt something, a slight movement, a deeper breath. Then slowly, Noah opened his eyes. His pupils searched for me, dim yet present. And in that moment, when our gazes met, I felt something powerful surge through my heart. He was still here. The doctor said his recovery would be long and difficult, but to me, it was already a miracle. You did it, Noah. We made it. In that moment, I understood. His battle was my battle. Our pain was shared, and our healing would be together. Months passed, and Noah returned to life. He was no longer the same. The marks of that terrible night were etched on his body, but his spirit remained intact, stronger, brighter. But time moves for everyone. A few months ago, I faced the hardest test of all, the one I knew was coming, yet I had hoped to postpone just a little longer. Noah had grown old. His pace had slowed, and his eyes looked more tired. Yet he had never left my side. He followed me everywhere, always present, always vigilant, just as he had his entire life. He was searching for me, waiting for me. Noah will be there, Louise, just like all those who have loved and served with a pure heart. Tears streamed down my face. Lord, does this mean that every animal we have loved will return to us? Jesus nodded gently. Not all animals form a deep bond with humans. Some are simply creatures of the earth. But those who have been part of your journey, those who have loved you and whom you have loved, will have a place by your side, for love is never wasted. I collapsed, overwhelmed by the revelation. So our bond will never be broken? Never. The love that comes from God is eternal. Then the light around me began to fade. I felt a pull drawing me back into my body, the real world growing clearer. Before leaving, Jesus said one last thing. When you return, share what you have seen. The world has forgotten the value of God's creatures. Remind mankind that every life is precious and that every bond of love is a sacred gift. The last thing I saw was Noah, still injured but alive. Then I woke up. Then, one morning, while I was taking him out into the yard for his therapy, it happened. Noah stopped. He looked at me. Then, with an incredible effort, he wagged his tail and took a few steps on his own. I knelt down before him, tears streaming down my face. Hey, my friend, I'm here. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw everything. Love, gratitude, the sorrow of having to say goodbye, but also peace. He knew that his time had come. I love you, Noah. Thank you for everything. With one final effort, he barely moved his tail, as if to say he loved me too, that he was ready. Then he closed his eyes. His body relaxed in my arms, and I realized he was gone. I do not know how long I knelt there, my face buried in the warmth of his fur, my heart shattered, tears flowing endlessly as the agony consumed me. The pain surged within me like a powerful torrent, sweeping away my breath, leaving me helpless and fragile. Was it truly the end? Had God, in his infinite mercy, sent him to me only to take him away? He had been my strength, my companion, my light in the darkest of times. He saved me when I was lost, when I had abandoned all hope, and now he was gone. In that final moment, I held him close, whispering through my grief, "Thank you, Noah. Thank you for loving me, even when I didn't deserve it." The ache in my soul felt unbearable, yet in the depths of my sorrow, I remembered the words of Jesus, "In my kingdom, nothing that you have loved will be lost." I closed my eyes and let those words wrap around me like a comforting embrace. In that moment, amidst the overwhelming despair, I felt a quiet, profound peace. Noah was not truly gone. He never would be. Each morning, when I wake and look at the empty space by my bed, I feel the weight of his absence. Yet, his spirit is everywhere. It lives in the memories I carry in my heart, in the moments when I still sense his presence beside me, and in the undeniable truth that one day, when God calls me home, I will see him again. And in that glorious reunion, we will run together, free from fear and pain, forever united in God's perfect love. In light of all I have witnessed, after experiencing such deep loss and the transformative power of love, I cannot remain silent. This message is not solely for me, but for anyone who has suffered, for anyone who has loved and lost, and for all who have found solace and hope in the gaze of an animal. Jesus taught me that animals are not just companions in this world. They are not mere accidents or adornments in our lives. They are sacred gifts from God, tools through which he speaks to us, sustains us, and leads us through our darkest moments. Noah was not just a dog. He was a divine messenger, a living testament to God's love for me. And I believe that God sends such messages to many of us. Though how often do we recognize them? How many of us fail to see that those loyal eyes that look at us with unyielding devotion are not just the eyes of an earthly creature, but of a being sent to reflect divine love? How often do we overlook the quiet, constant presence of love, not realizing that in those moments, God is showing us exactly what we need? When I found Noah, I thought I had rescued him. But in truth, it was he who had rescued me. God knew that I needed him as much as he needed me. He had been wounded, abandoned, forsaken by the world, just as I had felt when I lost Anna. Our suffering became entwined, and in our mutual pain, we found healing in one another. It was not by chance, it was not mere coincidence. No, it was part of God's grand design. Animals are not objects, not possessions to be discarded at will. They are precious creations entrusted to us, to be loved, cared for, and honored. The Bible tells us that God watches over them, and he is concerned for every living creature, no matter how small, because every life is of immense value. If God, in his majesty, cares for them, how can we, as his children, justify treating them with cruelty or indifference? Each time an animal suffers because of mankind's heartlessness, it is as if a piece of God's creation is desecrated. Yet, every time we extend love and care, we answer a divine calling. If there is an animal in your life that loves you unconditionally, that waits for you when you return home, that follows you wherever you go, do not dismiss it as just a companion. It is a sign from God, a message that you are not alone. And if you do not have such a companion, if there is an emptiness that you feel within, do not despair. Perhaps your sign has not yet arrived. Perhaps there is a creature waiting, longing for you, as much as you long for them. Is it not the very nature of God to send us comfort and hope when we are most in need? When we are broken, when we are lost, he brings us these reminders of his love, these signs, to lead us back to him. But how often do we turn away, blind to his presence, failing to recognize the blessings he so carefully places before us? When we look at our animals, we are looking into the eyes of divine love, of a love that never fails, never abandons, never seeks to harm. It is a love that mirrors the love of Christ, who, in his infinite mercy, gave his life for us, not because we deserved it, but because he loved us more than we could ever comprehend. As you journey through life, remember this truth. God's love surrounds you in ways you may not expect, through the eyes of a pet, through the gentle nudge of a loyal companion, through the warm presence of a creature who loves you without condition. These are the signs, these are the blessings, placed in our lives to remind us that we are never truly alone. How will you respond to that love? Will you open your heart to see the divine gifts around you? Or will you continue to walk past them, blind to the beauty of God's plan? Take a moment, look around you, and know that God is speaking through the love of animals, through the love of His creation, and through the love He has placed within you. In my journey through life, I have learned that when a person faces the deepest trials and pain, yet holds fast to their faith, heaven itself reaches down in its boundless mercy to offer help. This help may come in many forms, but often it appears as a pure soul, one chosen by God to walk alongside us in our darkest hours. A companion sent not only to comfort, but also to guide us on the path of faith. At the time, I didn't realize that Noah, my faithful companion, was the very help I had been praying for. It wasn't until I reflected upon the course of my life that I truly saw the hand of God at work, guiding me, showing me His love through Noah. Perhaps, as you reflect on your own life, you too will recognize the Noah God has sent to you. Maybe they are beside you now, maybe they were once with you, or perhaps the time has yet to come when they will cross your path. But I implore you, do not ignore these signs. Do not take for granted the silent love, the unwavering companionship, or the quiet presence that comforts you without uttering a single word. In the example of Jesus Christ, we see that God's love is steadfast and eternal. He has shown us that in His kingdom, nothing that has been loved will ever be lost. The time we share with others, whether human or animal, is never in vain. The bonds we form with those who walk beside us in faith, whether in this life or beyond, cannot be broken by death. The love we give and receive endures, for it is rooted in the eternal love of God. I learned this truth from Jesus' own example, for He gave His life for us, and by His sacrifice, He demonstrated that love, once given, is never truly lost. My beloved Noah may no longer be with me in this earthly realm, but I trust in the promise of Christ, that one day, when my time on this earth is over, I will be reunited with my faithful friend. I will find him there, waiting for me in the presence of our Heavenly Father, and we will run together, free from the chains of fear and pain, beyond the limitations of time. If there is one truth I wish to impart to you, it is this: animals are a precious gift from God. They are entrusted to us to love, to nurture, and to teach us the deepest meanings of loyalty and compassion. Through them, we experience the purity of God's love in a tangible form. They do not speak our words, yet they teach us profound lessons in patience, in unconditional love, and in kindness. Let us not squander this gift. Let us not fail to see the presence of God's love in the eyes of the animals who share our lives. We are called to be a reflection of His love to them, just as they are to us. Through our care for them, we mirror God's care for us. Why is it so important that we recognize this? Because we are all called to love, not just those who can speak or reason, but all of God's creatures. For in every creature, there is a reflection of the Creator's love, a reminder of His endless grace. As we open our hearts to the animals in our lives, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of God's love for us. Are we truly living as His children if we neglect the creatures He has made? Can we call ourselves faithful servants if we fail to care for those He has entrusted to us? These are questions that challenge our hearts, urging us to reflect on our actions, to see the truth that is often hidden in plain sight. If you have made it this far, it is because your heart resonates with this truth. You understand that the love we show to God's creation, especially animals, is a reflection of our love for Him. It is not by accident that you are reading these words. It is by divine appointment that you have been brought to this message. If you believe in the words of our Lord and in the truth that animals are a gift, I encourage you to share this message with those around you. Let it be a beacon of love and truth, reaching out to others, reminding them of their responsibility to God's creatures. We must all understand the importance of this truth, that animals are not simply companions, but are a manifestation of God's care for us. If you believe this message and want to make a stand for the truth, say Amen in the comments and share your heart with others. Let your voice be heard, so that the world may understand the depth of God's love for all creatures, great and small. And if you have yet to subscribe to this channel, I encourage you to do so. Let us continue to explore the love of God together. May He bless you abundantly, now and always. I look forward to sharing more with you on this journey of faith. May God's grace be with you as you walk in His love.